Today we're talking about setting a precedent and how easy it is to set a bad precedent and then have difficulty retracting it. And an example of this would be when I've managed people in the past. Something I've found is a super real challenge is if you let people get away with something that maybe they shouldn't be doing, then at some point, if you want to crack down and say you're going to set a standard, they will be indignant and they will say, well, why are you making me do this now? I didn't have to do it before. Maybe it's something simple like enforcing a dress code. Somebody thinks that they don't have to quite conform to the company dress code, and you don't think it's such a big deal, so you let them get away with not doing it, and then when you tell them they have to, they just think you are a really unfair person, and maybe they will proceed to use everyone else as an example of why other people are getting away with it, so why shouldn't I be able to continue getting away with it? Because after all, until you enforce the standard on everybody, you shouldn't have any right to enforce it on me. So, until you literally get everything to be 100% perfect, people will use that as evidence that they don't have to hold themselves to any standard at all. And it's just really a vicious cycle. Whereas if from day one, you had really aggressive standards and you said, this is exactly how things are supposed to be, and you have to conform to that because it's not an option, then people are much more likely to comply. And they're not going to give pushback in the same way because they understand that that's just who you are. You didn't change who you are. You just were very consistent from the beginning. Now, that brings me to the second point I have to make here, and that is, what happens if you have allowed yourself to set a precedent which is not ideal, and then you want to change? It's important for you to be comfortable with the idea of changing your practiced way of life, or way of managing your life, or way of managing things in your life. And quite often, we will decide we want to change something about ourselves, but then there's this fear of a negative reaction from our peers, and that keeps us from making that change. Maybe you were overweight and you wanted to go on some sort of a diet and you wanted to start to get fit. But maybe you were hanging out with other people who were basically engaged in the same bad habits as you. Well, now that junk food and soda routine is no longer what you want to do. But those friends are going to say, well, you know, why don't you just loosen up? Because you're no fun if you don't want to eat this stuff with us, right? Just one Big Mac, you know? Or maybe it's something like drugs or alcohol. A lot of people think that maybe they want to stop smoking or they want to stop drinking or something like that. But then there's going to be that peer pressure where somebody's going to come along and they're going to say, well, why don't you just lighten up? You know, we're not telling you to get drunk. We're just saying have a drink with us, you know? What's one beer, right? Or, you know, you're not going to be able to hang out with your people who you used to take a smoke break with because, you know, you can't just go out there and hang out with them and not smoke a cigarette, right? Not only is it a temptation to you, but it just doesn't feel the same, doesn't hit the same, right? So there's that feeling of, I'm going to be excluded, I'm going to be disrespected if I change, so I can't really change. And people are going to think that I'm fake. And nobody wants to be thought of in this way as being superficial and fake and basically just putting on some kind of a show. The truth is, maybe you know that you want to actually do something different and it's coming from a place that's genuine, but other people aren't going to necessarily know that. They're just going to think that one day you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you decided that you wanted to be a different kind of a person for some sort of a very transient, temporary reason. And it's important for you to make sure that the things you're doing do come from a genuine place. Like, don't just pretend for a day. If you're going to just pretend for a day, you might as well not. But if you really want to change, there's going to be a period of time where you're going to set a different standard. You're going to do different things that are new, that are in some ways outside your comfort zone, and also outside of the comfort zone of other people and their expectations of you. Now, one thing that's really important to remember is that people don't care as much as you think they do. The truth is, if any of us died, we'd be forgotten pretty quick. Now, that might sound really cruel. It might sound, cold-hearted to say this. But the truth is, life is all about the living. Even if people like somebody, when that person's gone, they're going to move on with their lives, as they should. So, likewise, people's focus is really primarily on themselves. No matter how much we say that people are extremely interested in others and those around them, usually they aren't really interested in those around them unless those around them are in some way benefiting them. People have a really superficial sort of a way of looking at the worth of their fellow human beings. Doesn't mean people are bad, but that's just the truth. And it's very rare for people to really have a deep sentimental value to place someone else's interests before their own. And I guess that's an enlightened selfishness, when you really feel like it's in your interest to put someone else's needs first because you value that person in a very deep and personal way. And that it can happen, but it's not very common. And I say that for the purpose of reminding you that if you decide you want to make a change in your life, you might think that everybody around you is looking at you and judging you and losing sleep over you and thinking about why are you different today than you were yesterday. And the truth is, it's just a very passing acknowledgement of your existence. People don't really care, but you care. So when you want to change, when you want to chart a new course, don't be afraid to do that. Because ultimately, the investment you make in yourself is going to pay off for the rest of your life. The criticism you get from other people in the process of that is going to fade away very, very rapidly. People will criticize you, but they will move on and forget about it almost immediately. So don't be afraid of changing. Don't be afraid of giving up social connections if people don't want to hang out with you when you make changes in your life. Don't be afraid of what they're thinking about you. Truth is, people don't think about others very much at all. So when you realize how little other people probably care about you, then why wouldn't you care about yourself? Why wouldn't you make changes in your life? You know, you could be talking about how you don't want to give up those people you hung out with on that smoke break because they're going to judge you if you aren't smoking with them, right? Well, when you get cancer, do you think that those people are going to care about you? No. They're going to just be sitting over there by the Folgers can, continuing to smoke while you are sitting in a hospital bed somewhere. you know? Do you think that those people who pressure you to have that drink are going to care if you get drunk and you get into a car accident or you kill somebody while you're drinking and driving? No, they're not going to care about that. Now, they might be there to tell you, hey, you should just go ahead and do this, but they're not going to care when you bear the consequences and they don't. That person who doesn't want to follow your direction, if you're that manager at work like I was talking about before, they don't want to button up their shirt or something, right? They don't want to follow some direction because they think they should be able to get away with whatever. Do you think they're going to care if you get a below standards mark on your evaluation at the end of the year because you weren't able to hold other people accountable? No, they're not going to care about that. So you really have to put yourself first, your well-being, your interests, and don't spend your life being afraid of what other people are going to think about you. If you're standing on the side of truth, if you're doing things because they're coming from the right place, then you really have no reason to worry whether other people like it or they don't like it. And you'll have some people that'll be the vocal ones that don't like it. And then there will be a lot of other people who potentially will look at you and say, oh, well, you know what? That's actually a good example. Maybe I'm going to adopt some of those changes in my life too. But when you change other people's lives in a positive way by being a good influence on them, quite often you don't really see an obvious return, because people aren't going to come to you and say, oh my goodness, look at how much good you did in my life. No. But you might do good in their life. They'll apply those lessons. They will learn and they will be better off because of it. But then there's going to be the people who come along and they try to throw a wrench in whatever you're doing. And those will always be the vocal minority that reigns on the parade. Don't allow them to erode from your mission to work on yourself. And if something bears good fruit in your life, continue to do it. Even if, for a time, it feels like you have to pretend. Even if it feels like you're not being yourself. Continue to make that investment in yourself. Because change, even if it feels disingenuous at the beginning, is an investment which will continue to pay off for the rest of your life. Good luck on your adventure. Till next time. Thank you for watching.